So,
Sorry,
yeah, go on.
no, I was going to ask you, how difficult is it for gay men, black men especially, to find a support network?
First of all, it is depending, there are very many black gay organizations around that are providing support for black gay men. But the question is, what kind of support are they getting? And the issue still remains that there is a lot of shame and stigma surrounding mental health. So not too many people want to talk about mental health. As a matter of fact, DBGM, the organization, in 2015, we had 3 6-week cycle support groups for men, for, we call it sons, who've not been accepted by their mothers for who they are. Because remember I talked earlier about the mother's acceptance of son's mother having the mother's acceptance. And so that was quite well done at GMAD in Brooklyn. And that lapsed. And so we are going to be starting that again in September. But we're adding another support group, another group for mothers of color whose sons have died from HIV/AIDS or who have committed suicide. And the reason we are doing it for mothers is because we know that in many families, mothers, the relationship between a mother and son is one of those the strongest bonds there is. But when a son dies, mothers feel that pain the worst, the most. Mothers do. And very many mothers, especially in the black community, they internalize that pain. And then it begins to manifest in health problems for themselves: high blood pressure, diabetes, cardiovascular diseases, liver disease, lung issues, whatever. But then it also manifests in the way that their families become fragmented after that.
And then this is a wider problem, or a deeper problem, because young black men are not only dying from HIV and so on, but also there was an escalation of young black men being killed by policemen or being incarcerated.
Let's stop. But then I hear where you're going, and I will suggest that those are what we would call the non-traditional forms of suicide. So just as there is research that tells us that there are people who contract HIV as a passive form of suicide, there are the non-traditional forms of suicide. Is I will put myself in the situation where I am killed by the police, or I will put myself in a situation where I'm incarcerated. So I begin this long, slow process. Even the concept of drug use and abuse is a form of suicide. It's a form of self-harm. It's a form of, I don't care about me anymore. So I will use whatever means I can to take myself out. It may be a short time. It may be a prolonged, protracted time. And if it's prolonged and protracted or short, they are oblivious to the pain that they cause all those around them. Remember I said that when we think about mental health, each of us siloize ourselves. We think we are the only person in the world that's going through this experience.
What is your deepest concern, your deepest fear for black gay men in America?
I don't think there is any one concern I can have. There are several.
In the context of mental health.
That because federal, state, and local governments have not invested significant amounts of funding to treat and provide for mental health care, that there will likely be an increase in active, traditional, as well as passive forms of suicide. And the reason I say that is looking at the rates of HIV in the South of the United States has some of the highest rates of HIV, from Columbia, South Carolina, Atlanta, Miami, Tennessee, Houston, Texas, um, New Orleans, the whole southern belt, from DC going all the way down, have the highest rates of HIV. But not unconsidered is addressing the mental health of these communities to be able to make that kind of change. Because if I'm of the opinion, if we address the mental health, then an individual will become more aware and more conscious of his self-worth, his self-value, that he is then going to make better choices. You understand what I mean?
Yes.
He's not going to, he's going to insist that when he's having sex with somebody else, that the person use a condom. He's going to insist that even if the person is using Truvada, or even if he's on pre-exposure prophylaxis, that the person does not ejaculate in him, that the person withdraws, pulls out. He will then take charge of his life because he is now confident in himself. He will recognize that he has a purpose. He has value. He has a place in society, in the human race, in his community, and he can make a difference.
I want to say some words. A quote. If by what I'm doing, one black gay man could be prevented from killing himself, then my job is done. His healing begins. Your words, Antoine. How does that statement usually resonate with you when you hear someone say it? And what does it?
It says to me that it's a bit of a misnomer, actually, because no one person can ever be saved. The reason I say that is this. Back in 2013, at about 1:30 in the morning, I got a phone call. I'm like, who the hell is this calling me this time of the night? It turns out that this is a Jamaican doctor living in New Jersey, a black gay man, who called me up and he said he saw the trailer for my documentary and he has decided that he wants to live. He's a well-accomplished surgeon. He's a doctor. And he says to me, I saw your trailer for the documentary and I have decided that I want to live. And I took a deep breath and I thought to myself, my job is done. But in a sense, it's not quite done. Because it is hypocritical, it would be hypocritical of me to suggest that I want to save the world. I cannot do that. But I can try with one person at a time. And yes, this black gay doctor calls me at 1:30 in the morning and tells me he's choosing to live. So I know, take one down, but there's still one more that needs. And the work that I've been doing for all these years, there have been several who've come forward and said to me, I want to live. I've decided that I want to live. And I just shrugged my shoulders and said, well, I'm glad to hear. Because now it says to me, I have one more. I have one more to help. I have one more to work with.
This conference, Antoine, for those who want to register, want to participate, how do they find, how do they register, where do they go?
They can go to our website, dbgm.org, And let me spell it out again phonetically so that people can get it. Those who might be listening, it's D as in David, B as in boy, G as in God, M as in man. .org. On the main web page, you can click anywhere on the main web page, and it will take you to the registration page for the conference, and you can register. One of the interesting things about this conference, and we haven't really got a chance to go into it, but amazingly, we received more abstract submissions for this conference than we could ever accommodate, on a ratio of about 2-1. What we have right now is 2 days chock full with 5 workshop sessions with 6 workshops in each session. So that's 30 workshops. 14 of those workshops have been selected and approved to provide continuing education credits for social workers in New York State who require CEs for their licensing. So we are encouraging mental health professionals, especially social workers who require for their licensing, to come to this conference, because 14, or let's say 46% of our entire schedule has been selected and approved for continuing. And it's the first time this is happening. We've not done this before. The other thing is that in this program schedule, there are at least 2 controversial presentations. One is a presentation by a former porn star who's discussing the mental health of porn actors and people in pornography, especially black gay pornography. And it's a huge area. It's a multi-billion-dollar industry, because a lot of young black gay men, or sometimes straight black gay men, or what we call gay for pay, will get into porn, and there have been a couple of suicides from porn actors who can't find another job when they've become used and washed up. And many of them also use a lot of drugs to help them. Then there's another controversial presentation that's done by a professor of literature at Howard University that's talking about looking at the stigma surrounding the use of the Jamaican slang or the Jamaican derogatory batty boy, and in Guyana what we call an anti-man. So it's to discuss the mental health construct of what that language, what that does to an individual. How does that affect the person when you call that batty boy, or your bulla man, as the Trinidadians would say, or your anti-man, as the Guyanese would say, or as the Americans in America you say a faggot. How does that affect a person, and how is it reflected in literature? So he's going to be looking at specific books from the Caribbean and how these books, whether language, contribute or address that kind of language usage and its effect on somebody's mental health.
Well, you gotta tell me, man, way over our time tonight, but I'm glad, because this is quite an interesting conversation. It gave you an opportunity to touch on a number of different areas. But I gotta ask you this before we close off.
I thought you said you're done.
What still surprises you about you?
That I can get stuff done.
When are you most happy?
When I'm laying on my couch looking at TV.
What are you most thankful for?
I am most grateful. I wouldn't say thankful. I would just say grateful for the vastness of experiences and the people who've contributed to my life. From New Amsterdam to Georgetown to England to here. There are myriad people in my life who've contributed to who I am today. Um, and in a kind of a way, it kind of adds pressure onto you. So I always now have to be on my best behavior. I have to be now very careful what I say and be circumspect, because anything I do or say reflects on all the people who have been there for me. Um, one of the things that I heard was said about me when I was a child is that I would grow up and be ungrateful and disappoint my adopted family. And so my mother, Aunt Lorna, was warned that she should be careful how she, bringing up another person's child, because he'll leave you and he's going to be ungrateful and so forth. And one of the things that I know is that I trust that I have been able to make the Craigwell family proud um, by what I've done, and what I may still be able to and continue to do.
If you could go back in time, what would you tell your 15-year-old self?
I was thinking about that. If I should go back in time, I'll tell my 15-year-old self, try to learn a little bit more patience,
Patience.
but not necessarily change anything.
What makes you laugh out loud, Antoine?
A good joke.
Guyanese joke or just any?
Actually, I don't find American humor to be very funny, except for the Big Bang Theory. And I think the Big Bang Theory, because it appeals to the scientific part of my brain, the cognitive side of my brain. But a good Guyanese laugh.
Did you have any when you went back recently?
Yes, that is a Guyanese joke that is pregnant with innuendo and suggestion, and you can blow up that joke and it will go in many different places, but you dare not, because it is so condensed and so concentrated that that's all it's good for. And because of the multiplicity of different factors and the places where it can go, all you can do is just simply laugh.
Antoine, thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks. This is Selwyn saying, good evening, thanks for listening. Fear not what fear whispers to you. Fear your obedience to it. Good night. To be satisfied.